Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Arell, and today I'm going to talk just a little bit about a question a student asked me in terms of thinking about how to navigate your life when things happen that you didn't plan. So, how to live in the space when things around you did not go to according to your imagination, or perhaps when you get some kind of news that your life's going to shift in one direction that was not a direction that you either intended or imagined happening. On one level, I think this happens to all of us. Think about if a parent gets sick, or if a sibling has an accident of some sort, and all of a sudden life shifts and we have to negotiate our schedule, our timing, our school, our jobs around a particular event. And I think sometimes, because we are humans that we're in relationship with can make decisions or do things that drastically order the way that we then have to conceptualize the way that we function in the world. That can happen also according to jobs. Maybe something happens at school that's drastic, that you have to leave school for a while. You lose a job unexpectedly. All of these external circumstances that we cannot control, or that you cannot control, bring up this confrontation with a life that hasn't been planned. So I'm going to talk about some strategies about how to manage or live through that. But I want to qualify it because I think this is my opinion and the way that I would live. And I don't think all of us are the same in terms of how we conduct ourselves in any given stressful circumstance. So that's just my caveat. This is how I manage things that come up that weren't expected. That first word I want to key in on is expected. So we have expectations, right? And we run around the world with an expectation that something's going to turn out a particular way. I don't know, maybe 80% of the time that doesn't work out. And so our level of disappointment could be more or less depending on the severity or intensity of the situation. But it's the expectations themselves that set us up for the disappointment. I think really reflecting on one's expectations of what a future or a circumstance or a plan looks like doesn't mean not to have the expectation, but maybe put a little Buddhism into that in terms of staying unattached to the outcome, holding it lightly. That is a very Buddhist concept, which is in their realm of thinking about suffering. And we do suffer when things don't go as planned or how we've imagined them or how we've expected them. It's understanding that the suffering actually comes from our desires to have something a certain way. So that if we can manage our expectations, that can help with living through the experience of something that's not planned. One of the things that I try to do when I say I have an event coming up that I want to go a certain way is I imagine how I want it to look. But then I also give myself a counter story or counter stories, or even moments when I really let go of considering any kind of expectation. But I do both because I want to be prepared. And I also am okay with a little bit of pain. So I can feel the discomfort if it doesn't go my way. But then I allow myself the space to both imagine what I want or desire, but then also the space to go, you know what, it may be something totally different, and I'm open to that. Another word that could be involved in this thinking through is the idea of acceptance. Both of the scenarios that I create in my mind, I want to imagine that I'm okay in either circumstance. I can manage any outcome. I'll be okay. I accept any outcome. What helps me with acceptance is the concept that any given circumstance, whether it's what I want or not, is going to give me some sort of learning. So that is probably the biggest thing I enter in with if something's happening that's unplanned. What am I learning here? What can I learn here about other people? And what can I learn in this circumstance about myself? What can I learn in this circumstance about myself that helps me the next time something like this happens? Or that gives me the skills that I can share with someone else to help them if they confront something that's completely unplanned? What can I learn about the world that offers me more stability in the ambiguity or in the uncertainty of what the world presents us at any given time. To reflect then, I've offered 3 core terms so far. The idea of managing expectations, or expectations in general being held loosely. The concept of acceptance, so accepting any which way something's going to evolve or turn out. And third, approaching uncertainty, ambiguity with this energy of what can I learn here? This question of what is in this situation that's going to help me become in my life the next person that I am. How am I becoming here? I've mentioned trust. And when I say trust is tricky. It's longer in terms of its substance than what I'm going to say here, but I'll offer a couple thoughts around it that I think are pretty critical in terms of health and well-being. 1, my self-trust of myself consists of my belief that I am going to be able to handle anything that's put in front of me. There are some people that will profess the message, everything's going to be okay. In some cases, I like that message. In other ways, a lot of people walk around with belief systems that it's not going to be okay. And I think that we are facing a world where sometimes it's not okay. And there's not an end to understanding or seeing when it will be okay. That goes back to the self-trust aspect, which is if it's not okay, I know I can count on myself in this particular situation. This is especially important when it comes to relationships or to events completely outside of our control where something is a force that's potentially dangerous. I'm from Florida. And when I see a hurricane coming, everybody in my area of the world wants to hope that it doesn't hit them, but it's going to hit somebody. So somebody in that situation is going to be not okay. So what are the tools that family or those people need to understand that they will be okay? Well, that they can make choices to take care of themselves in this tumultuous event. I've articulated self-trust, and then I've debunked a little bit this idea of trusting in everything to be okay or trusting the world to be okay. And then there's a third message. When I was thinking about this topic, one thing that struck me was the idea that a lot of people will say everything's going to be okay because God set out a path for me. There are people that have that belief system, and I think that's great if it offers strength in the circumstances. I think that's a tool to use and to cultivate in terms of managing. I also think that belief held appropriately does not mitigate one's capability or agency in the world. I think it's really important to continue to self-trust outside of the message that God has a plan for you. What essentially I'm saying, if I can put that into one statement, is even if God has a plan that creates comfort in discomfort, that does not remove the responsibility of the self to develop trust or a knowledge that I also am a part of this plan and can take action to create my own sense of being okay, both without that belief and within that belief. Again, I think pace and going slowly is really, really important. So pretend you hear some new news. It throws you off, creates some fragmentation in your thinking, you panic, you're worried. Well, at some point, the new news is going to be old news. You can trust that that's going to evolve. And there's a point at which, think about drinking water or eating. You have to digest that news. The ability to understand and believe and relax into the fact that news, that shocking news, is eventually not going to be shocking anymore. It's going to become part of a new reality. It's going to become part of your life script. It's going to become part of your story. And so I think it's worth thinking about giving yourself the time when you get some new news or when things are going unplanned to take a second and let it kind of settle. If it's something like a text message that tells you something that you didn't know was going to happen and now it's happening, you can literally take the time. If your life completely shifts and there's grieving involved in pain and there's other people and it's a huge shift, it may take 6 months to a year. It may take 2 years. But the idea that, okay, I can I can let this enter my being, my space, and that it will just be a matter of course or time for it to get integrated. And your intentional work on and integrating this experience can help you live through, into, and after it. Thanks.